Imagine for a moment that you're standing in the middle of a vast ancient library. Dusty books line the shelves, each one a mystery waiting to be uncovered. As you reach out to take a book from the shelf, you notice that it has no title, no visible writing on the spine. You open it, and its pages are filled with strange symbols, vivid imagery, and cryptic messages. You know that somewhere in these pages lies something important, perhaps a piece of wisdom meant specifically for you, but the question remains, how do you interpret it? This is what many of us experience every night when we dream. Our minds open the book of the subconscious, showing us scenes and symbols that can seem random or confusing. But what if dreams are not just the random firing of neurons in the brain? What if they are a form of divine communication, offering insight, guidance, and even answers to life's most pressing questions? And more importantly, how do we interpret and act on the messages we receive? Today I want to introduce you to a new way of looking at dreams, through the lens of triads. A triad is a group of three interconnected elements, each influencing and reflecting the others. This approach allows us to see dreams as structured systems of meaning where divine intent, dream symbolism, and human understanding all come together in a dynamic, evolving relationship. It gives us a framework for interpreting the often chaotic and abstract world of dreams in a way that makes sense and, more importantly, in a way that moves us to action. Why triads? Because when we look at dreams through triads, we begin to see patterns. These patterns reveal not only what the dream is telling us, but how that message is linked to both the divine and to our waking life. Through the interrelation of elements, we can begin to decode even the most complex dreams, turning them from obscure images into actionable insights. Each triad represents a cycle of mutual influence, where the divine message shapes the dream's symbols, the symbols influence our understanding, and our understanding in turn shapes how we act in response to the dream. This approach is about more than just interpreting symbols. It's about understanding the relationship between the dream, the divine, and your everyday life. The triadic model allows us to see dreams as bridges between worlds, connecting the metaphysical with the physical, the abstract with the concrete, and the spiritual with the practical. Over the next several minutes, we'll explore 11 different triads, 11 ways in which dreams might communicate divine messages to us, and how we can apply these messages in our waking lives. These triads will help us understand the deeper structure of dreams, how they relate to our spiritual journeys, and how we can take action based on the guidance we receive. 1. Coexistence, divine intent, dream symbolism, and human understanding. At the heart of every meaningful dream lies a web of interconnected elements: divine intent, the symbols that appear in the dream, and how we as human beings interpret them. These three aspects coexist, influencing and reflecting one another. Think of it this way: every symbol in a dream is a thread, and those threads form a tapestry. The divine intent is woven into the symbols, which in turn shape our understanding. Each element has a reciprocal relationship with the others. When they come together in harmony, something powerful happens. We receive a message that feels almost intuitive. Let me tell you about a woman who experienced such a dream. For weeks, she had been struggling with a decision, whether to leave a job she no longer felt connected to. One night, she dreamt of standing at the edge of a forest, watching the sun rise over a field of golden wheat. The dream was filled with light and warmth. When she woke up, she felt an overwhelming sense of clarity. The divine intent behind the dream was unmistakable. It was time for a new beginning. The sun symbolized hope and renewal, and her understanding of the dream, guided by the vividness of the imagery, was immediate. She knew she had to move on. This triad, divine intent, symbolism, and human understanding, is like a well-tuned instrument. When played together, they create a harmonious message that's easy to interpret, as if the divine is whispering directly to us in a language we somehow already know. But dreams aren't always this clear-cut. Sometimes they require more time and repetition to to fully reveal their message. This brings us to our second triad: reinforcement. 2. Reinforcement, the cycle of divine messages through dreams. Have you ever had the same dream more than once? Maybe the scenery was a little different or a detail changed, but the core theme remained the same. This is the idea of reinforcement, where the divine message grows stronger through repetition. Just like a song playing on repeat, the message becomes clearer and more insistent each time the dream returns. Let's consider the story of a man who dreamt again and again of being on a ship caught in stormy seas. In the dream, the waves were overwhelming, but each night the dream would show him something new. At first he noticed the intensity of the storm, then over time he began to realize that he wasn't alone on the ship. There were others around him also trying to steer through the tempest. After several nights, he understood that the dream was about more than the literal storm. It was a metaphor for his emotional life. The people on the ship represented the relationships he had been neglecting. The divine message became clearer with each iteration. He needed to address the emotional turmoil in his life, not just for his own sake, but for those around him. The dream wasn't just repeating, it was reinforcing the message, layering it with more nuance each time. Reinforcement works by repeating the dream in cycles, strengthening the relationship between the divine message, the dream imagery, and our growing understanding. When we experience a recurring dream, it's a sign that the message is too important to ignore. It's as though the divine is patiently nudging us, saying, "You haven't quite grasped this yet, but keep looking. You're getting closer." And yet not all dreams come from a place of slow, repeated revelation. Some dreams strike us like lightning, arising directly out of a spiritual or emotional need. This brings us to our next triad: causality. 3. Causality, from spiritual need to behavioral response. There are times in life when we find ourselves at a crossroads, faced with a difficult decision or in need of guidance. In these moments, our spiritual needs are heightened, and it is often then that dreams step in to provide clarity. In this third triad, we see how a specific spiritual need can trigger a dream, which in turn leads to a direct behavioral response. One night, a woman who was struggling to decide whether to end a long-term relationship had a vivid dream. In the dream, she found herself walking through a garden. One plant was flourishing, its leaves lush and green, but the plant beside it was withered and dry. No matter how much water she gave it, the withered plant wouldn't revive. She woke with a heavy feeling in her chest, realizing that the dream was offering her a clear message. Her relationship was no longer nourishing her, no matter how much effort she put into it. This is an example of causality. Her spiritual need for clarity led to the dream, and that dream, in turn, influenced her actions. She ended the relationship, finding peace in the understanding that sometimes, no matter how hard we try, certain things are beyond revival. The beauty of causal dreams is their straightforwardness. There's no need for extensive interpretation or multiple repetitions. The connection between the dream and its message is direct. The dream arises in response to a need, and once the message is clear, we're moved to act. In these moments, dreams act as powerful catalysts for change, offering us the clarity and courage we need to move forward. 4. Nonlinear paths, sacred experiences, and dream imagery. Not all dreams follow a neat linear path. Sometimes they appear abstract or disjointed, leaving us puzzled about their meaning. But often these nonlinear dreams reflect experiences or spiritual insights we've had in life, showing up in symbolic, indirect ways. In this fourth triad, we explore how dreams can connect mystical or sacred experiences with our choices, even if the dream imagery itself feels abstract or difficult to understand at first. Let's imagine a man who had a life-changing experience during a pilgrimage. While visiting a sacred site, he felt a profound sense of oneness, a moment where he truly understood the interconnectedness of all things. But when he returned home, that feeling began to fade, slipping away like water through his fingers. Soon after, he started having recurring dreams of walking through a vast, intricate forest. At first glance, the dream seemed random, almost mundane, A forest, trees, paths, what could it possibly mean? It wasn't until he reflected more deeply that he understood the connection. The dream, with its endless branches and interconnected pathways, was a reflection of the spiritual insight he had gained on his pilgrimage, that everything in life is connected, much like the intertwined roots and branches of a forest. The dream was non-linear, but the divine message was clear. The sacred experience he had on his journey was still present, just in a different form. His choices, now influenced by that sacred insight, were shaping his life. Non-linear dreams like these don't always present their messages in obvious ways. They require patience, reflection, and sometimes the recognition that life doesn't always unfold in straight lines. Instead, it weaves and twists, much like the forest in the man's dream. These dreams show us that sacred experiences continue to influence us, even when they aren't at the forefront of our minds. The divine is still working, still guiding us, even when the path feels indirect. 5. Inclusive dreams. Personal visions with collective impact. Have you ever had a dream so powerful, so vivid, that it felt like it wasn't just meant for you? Perhaps it felt like it was speaking to something larger, a message not only for yourself but for a group, a community, or even the world. In this fifth triad, we explore how dreams can move beyond the personal, carrying divine meaning for the wider community. Dreams can act as bridges between the individual and the collective. Let me tell you the story of a young activist who, at a critical point in her work, had a dream that changed everything. She dreamt she was standing in the middle of a barren field, watching as people from all directions came together, planting trees in the dry, cracked earth. The more trees that were planted, the more the field transformed into a lush, thriving forest. She wasn't alone in this dream. There were dozens, maybe hundreds of people, all working together toward the same goal. Upon waking, she knew this dream wasn't just for her. It was about more than her personal journey. It was a call to action, not just for her, but for the entire community. She saw it as a divine message urging her to mobilize others, to work collectively toward environmental restoration. And so she began organizing tree planting initiatives in her city. What started as a personal vision grew into a movement, with hundreds of people joining her efforts. The barren field of her dream became a metaphor for the world she wanted to change, and through collective action they began to plant hope, one tree at a time. Inclusive dreams like these carry profound significance. They show us that we're not isolated. Our dreams are often woven into a larger fabric of communal meaning and purpose. The divine speaks to us not just as individuals, but as members of a greater whole, reminding us that our actions ripple outwards, affecting the lives and futures of those around us. 6. Dreams as the bridge, connecting the divine and human understanding. Dreams are not just fleeting mental images. In many ways, they act as bridges, linking the divine realm with human understanding. In this sixth triad, we focus on how dreams serve as mediators, connecting divine messages to human emotions, thoughts, and actions in a way that allows us to fully grasp their meaning. Think of a dream as a translator. The divine may communicate in ways that are far beyond our ordinary comprehension, through feelings, energies, or insights that we can't quite put into words. But dreams take these messages and render them into images, symbols, and experiences that we can grasp and reflect on. The dream itself becomes a sacred space, a bridge where the divine and the human meet. Let me share the story of a man who had been carrying the weight of guilt for years. He had hurt someone he loved deeply and couldn't forgive himself, even though he had long sought reconciliation. One night he had a dream where he found himself standing on a bridge made of glass, suspended over a vast ocean. The water was dark and deep, swirling below him. As he stood there, the bridge began to crack, and just before it shattered completely, a figure appeared on the other side, holding out their hand. When he woke, the dream felt so real, so urgent that he couldn't shake it. He realized that the bridge symbolized his fragile emotional state, The guilt he was holding onto was breaking him apart. But the figure on the other side was offering him something, perhaps forgiveness, perhaps a chance at healing. The dream wasn't just a random collection of images. It was a divine message, showing him the path to reconciliation, both with himself and with the person he had hurt. In this way, the dream acted as a bridge, translating a complex and overwhelming emotional burden into something he could see and feel in a symbolic form. Through this dream, the divine message became clear. Healing and forgiveness were possible, but he needed to take the first step across that fragile bridge. Dreams like these serve as mediators between the abstract and the tangible, between the divine and the human. They take complex spiritual messages and render them in ways we can understand and act upon. When we dream, we are standing at the threshold between worlds, receiving guidance that can illuminate our path forward. 7. The harmonic trio: divine inspiration, dreams, and ethical choices. Dreams don't just guide us inwardly, they also help us navigate the external world, particularly when we're faced with ethical dilemmas. In this seventh triad, we see how dreams, divine inspiration, and moral decision-making come together in harmony, providing us with the clarity we need to make the right choices. Let me tell you about a man named David, who found himself at a difficult crossroads in his business. He was offered a lucrative deal that would bring in significant profit, but something about it didn't sit right with him. The deal would require cutting corners and compromising on some of the ethical standards he had always prided himself on upholding. He was torn, tempted by the potential gains, but uneasy about what it would mean for his values. One night, David had a dream. In it, he stood before a scale, but instead of weighing objects, the scale held two things. On one side was a pile of gold, gleaming and heavy. On the other side was a single feather, light and delicate. At first glance, it seemed obvious that the gold would outweigh the feather. But as he watched, the feather's side slowly began to rise, balancing out the gold. The dream ended with the scales perfectly balanced, leaving David to wake in a state of deep contemplation. What did this dream mean? The gold clearly represented the material rewards of the deal, the wealth and success that seemed so tangible. But the feather? The feather was his conscience, his sense of fairness and integrity, which he had believed to be fragile in the face of such temptation. Yet in the dream, the feather had carried the same weight as the gold. For David, this was a divine message. The dream wasn't just symbolic, it was guiding him toward a moral decision. It showed him that his ethical values were not something to be easily dismissed. They held just as much weight as any material gain. He turned down the deal, choosing to stay true to his principles. This triad, divine inspiration, dreams, and ethical decisions, reminds us that our dreams are often mirrors of our moral compass, reflecting the choices we need to make in the waking world. The divine doesn't just speak to us in symbols for introspection, but also to guide our actions, ensuring that our decisions are aligned with both our values and the higher truths we aspire to live by. 8. Convergence, dreams, divine messages, and action. There are moments when everything aligns: the dream, the divine message, and our subsequent actions. This convergence is the essence of the 8th triad. It's where dreams go beyond mere symbols or abstract guidance and lead directly to transformative action in the real world. Let's explore the story of a woman named Rachel, who had been feeling increasingly disconnected from her community. She longed to make a difference, to contribute to something greater than herself, but wasn't sure where to begin. Then one night she had a powerful dream. In it, she stood by a dried-up riverbed, the earth cracked and barren. As she watched, a small stream of water began to trickle through the riverbed, slowly gathering strength until it became a rushing river. People from all directions came to the river's banks, planting seeds and tending to the soil around it. Soon, the once barren landscape was blooming with life. Rachel woke up feeling deeply moved. The dream was vivid, almost urgent, and she knew it carried a divine message. But what was it asking of her? As she reflected, she realized that the dream was a call to action. The river symbolized renewal, and the people planting seeds represented the collective effort needed to bring about positive change. Inspired by the dream, Rachel decided to take action. She began organizing community events centered around environmental restoration, starting small with local cleanup efforts and tree planting initiatives. What started as a simple idea quickly gained momentum, and soon more and more people were joining her efforts. The dream had sparked something real, something tangible, and the barren riverbed of her dream became a metaphor for the rejuvenation she helped bring to her community. In this triad, the dream doesn't just offer guidance, it leads directly to action. Rachel's dream wasn't just a reflection of her inner state or a symbolic message about potential. It was a clear directive showing her how to align the divine message with her actions in the real world. The convergence of the dream, the divine, and her choice to act created a ripple effect, transforming not only her own life, but the lives of those around her. When dreams and actions converge like this, they create powerful real-world outcomes. The divine message moves from the abstract into the concrete, and the dreamer becomes an active participant in making that message a reality. 9. Combination dreams, spiritual awakening, and the power of action. Dreams often hold the potential for spiritual awakening, but that potential is only realized when we choose to act. This 9th triad examines the delicate balance between spiritual insight, dream symbolism, and the necessity of action. Without action, the dream's message remains unfulfilled. The combination of all three elements, spiritual awakening, dream vision, and action, creates a catalyst for transformation. Without this combination, the dream's potential remains dormant. Consider the story of a man named Peter, who had always felt a deep yet undefined yearning for purpose. He had been living a life that on the surface seemed successful, a good job, a stable family life, but something was missing. One night he had a dream that would stay with him for years. In the dream, he found himself standing at the edge of a cliff, looking out over a vast ocean. The sky was stormy and waves crashed against the rocks below. In his hands he held a compass, but no matter which direction he turned, the needle kept spinning, pointing nowhere. He felt lost, unsure of which path to take. The dream haunted him. He knew it held a deeper meaning, but for years he hesitated to take action. He continued with his life, always feeling as though something was missing, like the dream was urging him to do something, but he couldn't quite figure out what. It wasn't until a close friend encouraged him to start volunteering for a local charity that things began to shift. Peter started small, helping out at a food bank, but as he continued to give his time, he began to feel a sense of fulfillment he hadn't experienced before. One night, years after his first dream, Peter had another. This time he stood at the edge of the same cliff. But now the sky was clear and the ocean calm. He looked down and saw a path winding down the cliff to a beautiful beach below. The compass in his hand no longer spun aimlessly, it pointed directly to the path. When he woke, Peter knew that his dream had come full circle. The divine message had been urging him to take action all along, and now that he had, his spiritual journey had found direction. This triad illustrates the necessity of action in realizing the full potential of our dreams. Spiritual awakening and dream vision must be met with real-world steps, or their power remains unrealized. Peter's first dream showed him that he was lost, but it was only when he began to take action by finding purpose through service that the second dream and his spiritual fulfillment could be realized. Dreams offer us insight, but they are also a call to act. The divine message, the vision, and the action must all come together. When they do, we can unlock the full power of our dreams and allow them to lead us toward transformation and growth. 10. The depth of association, dream symbolism, divine source, and interpretation. As we explore the 10th triad, we dive into the intricate relationship between dream symbolism, its divine source, and how we choose to interpret it. Dreams speak to us in a language of symbols: water, fire, light, animals, each carrying a meaning far deeper than its surface appearance. Yet the power of a dream lies in how we interpret it. If we reduce its symbols to mundane explanations, we risk losing its divine significance. This triad shows us that the meaning of a dream is contingent on recognizing its higher origin. Consider the story of a woman named Maria, who had a recurring dream about walking through a house filled with mirrors. In the dream, every time she passed a mirror, her reflection changed. Sometimes she appeared older, other times as a child, and occasionally she didn't appear at all. The mirrors fascinated and unnerved her, and she couldn't shake the feeling that the dream was trying to tell her something important. At first, Maria dismissed the dream as nothing more than a reflection of her busy, multifaceted life. She assumed the changing reflections were simply about the many roles she played: daughter, mother, professional. But the dream kept coming back, each time with increasing clarity. One night, as she stood before a mirror in the dream, a figure appeared behind her, whispering, "Look deeper." It was then that she realized the dream wasn't just about the roles she played. It was a divine message about self-exploration and authenticity. The mirrors weren't simply reflecting different versions of her. They were asking her to confront the parts of herself she had been ignoring. The dream was urging her to look beyond the surface, to recognize that her true self was deeper than the roles and identities she had taken on. Once Maria understood the spiritual significance of the dream, it took on a whole new meaning. She began to examine her life more deeply, seeking out the parts of herself she had long neglected. Her creative spirit, her desire for personal growth, her connection to the divine. The dream's symbolism, once seen as mundane, became a doorway to profound personal insight. This triad teaches us that dreams are not just random collections of symbols, they are messages infused with divine wisdom. The way we interpret these symbols determines whether we unlock their full potential or dismiss them as insignificant. When we recognize the divine source behind the dream, we move from shallow interpretations to profound revelations. 11. Integration, divine insight, dream symbolism, and action. As we arrive at the final triad, we confront the ultimate challenge: integration. It's one thing to receive divine insight through dreams, but it's another to integrate that insight into our waking lives. Without action, even the most powerful dream remains unfulfilled. In this triad, we see how divine insight and dream symbolism must be combined with action to complete the cycle of transformation. Let me tell you about a man named James, who had always felt a strong spiritual calling but had never acted on it. For years, he had dreams about standing on the edge of a cliff, looking out at a vast open sea. Each time, he felt an overwhelming sense of longing, as if the ocean was calling him to dive in. But in the dream, he would always hesitate, never taking that final step. One night, the dream changed. This time, as he stood on the cliff, a voice came from the water below saying, "It's time." Unlike before, he felt a surge of courage, and without thinking, he dove into the water. When he hit the surface, the water was warm and calm, and he found himself swimming effortlessly toward the horizon. When James woke up, he knew that the dream had reached its climax. It wasn't just a symbolic journey anymore, it was a direct call to action. The divine message was clear. He had spent too long standing on the edge, waiting for the perfect moment to take the plunge. Now was the time to act. But here's the key. James didn't stop at interpreting the dream. He took the dream's message and integrated it into his life. He finally made the decision to leave his comfortable job and pursue the spiritual path he had always felt drawn to. He began studying to become a spiritual counselor, helping others navigate their own journeys of transformation. This triad is the culmination of all the others. Dreams offer us insight, guidance, and divine wisdom, but unless we act on that wisdom, the dream's purpose remains incomplete. The divine doesn't just communicate with us to provide comfort or reassurance. It speaks to us to inspire action, to spur us into making real changes in our lives. James's story illustrates this perfectly. His dream was more than just a metaphor for personal growth. It was a direct invitation to step into his true calling. By integrating the dream's message into his waking life, he completed the cycle of transformation, moving from insight to action, from dreaming to living. From Dream to Action, a structured approach to divine communication. Over the course of our journey, we've explored 11 distinct ways in which dreams may act as conduits for divine messages, each offering a different path toward understanding, transformation, and action. We've seen how dreams are not just fleeting, isolated experiences, but rich with meaning that is waiting to be interpreted, integrated, and acted upon. But as we conclude, the question remains, how can we take what we've learned and create a practical, structured method for analyzing our dreams? The answer lies in aligning the deep insights we've gained from these triads with a more systematic approach to dream analysis. Let's bring together all these threads into a comprehensive framework that you can apply in your own life. One that blends intuition with reflection, analysis with action, and the spiritual with the practical. The first step in analyzing any dream is to recognize its potential source. Ask yourself, is this dream carrying a message from the divine? You can start by paying attention to the intensity of the dream, the vividness of its symbols, and the emotional resonance it carries. The dreams that stick with us, those we wake from feeling a deep sense of significance, often have a higher purpose. Incorporate a symbolic inventory as part of your process. Write down the key symbols from your dream, be it water, light, a journey, or a specific figure. Reflect on what those symbols might mean within a spiritual context. Symbols often act as the language of the divine, and recognizing their deeper meaning is essential to unlocking the message behind the dream. For instance, if you dream of water, consider its associations with purification, emotional depth, or spiritual renewal. Is the water calm or turbulent? This can indicate whether you're navigating emotional stability or facing inner turmoil. Next, consider how the dream relates to your waking life. Is it a recurring dream, reinforcing a message that you may have missed? Or is it tied to a specific spiritual or emotional need you're currently experiencing? By identifying these connections, you can start to understand whether the dream is pushing you toward a certain behavior or decision. Look for patterns in your dreams that reinforce previous messages or correspond to moments of uncertainty or decision-making in your life. This step involves reflecting on the broader context of the dream. Ask yourself, how does this dream align with what I'm going through right now? Is it a response to a spiritual longing or a critical life decision? For example, if you're facing a major career decision and dream of a crossroad, the dream might be reflecting your internal struggle, nudging you toward a certain path. Take note of any directional cues within the dream, whether you move forward, turn left, or hesitate, and consider how that might translate to your waking decisions. Once you've identified the dream's immediate relevance, the next step is to explore its scope. Is the dream solely personal, or does it carry a collective message that could impact others? Some dreams, as we've discussed, aren't just for the dreamer, they're for a community, a group, or even the world at large. Others may reflect past sacred experiences that are still shaping your current choices in non-linear ways. Use this step to broaden or narrow your interpretation based on the scope of the dream. Reflect on whether the dream calls you to action individually, or whether it's asking you to engage with a wider audience or collective cause. A dream where you're planting trees in a barren field may initially seem personal, symbolizing personal growth. But if the field represents your community or the world, the dream might be asking you to initiate a project or action that benefits a larger group. Dreams are often packed with rich symbolism, but their true meaning can only be unlocked when we interpret them within a spiritual context. Avoid the temptation to dismiss dream symbols as mundane or surface level. Instead, focus on their deeper spiritual meanings and what they might signify for your personal journey. Dreams are often packed with rich symbolism, but their true meaning can only be unlocked when we interpret them within a spiritual context. Avoid the temptation to dismiss dream symbols as mundane or surface level. Instead, focus on their deeper spiritual meanings and what they might signify for your personal journey. To make this interpretation process more structured, you can develop a symbolic map where you note down recurring symbols and their interpretations over time. Gradually, you'll build a personal lexicon of dream symbols, helping you connect the dots between different dreams and the messages they carry. A recurring dream about fire might symbolize spiritual transformation, but only when seen through a divine lens. If you interpret the fire as purely destructive, you might miss the deeper message about the renewal that follows. Look at the context of the fire. Is it a controlled flame, a wild blaze, or a comforting hearth? These details can drastically alter the interpretation. Finally, and most importantly, the last step is integration. What are you going to do with the message you've received? The ultimate purpose of divine communication through dreams is not just for introspection, it's for transformation. The insight gained from the dream must lead to concrete action in the real world. This is where many dreams falter. They remain in the realm of possibility, never actualized into life-changing decisions or actions. To fully honor the dream, commit to an action plan. Write down what steps you will take based on the dream's message. Whether it's pursuing a new opportunity, mending a relationship, or starting a new spiritual practice, action is the key that completes the cycle. After dreaming of diving into the ocean, you realize the dream is encouraging you to leave behind your fears and embrace a new spiritual or life path. The action might be signing up for a course you've been hesitant to take, or making a leap of faith into a new career. Without this action, the dream's potential remains unrealized. Remember always, dreams are a form of divine communication, but they are only as impactful as the meaning we give them and the actions we take. Through this structured approach, you can begin to unlock the full potential of your dreams, aligning their messages with your waking life in meaningful and transformative ways.